I'm Terry Sacka, Chief Strategist. Welcome to the Wealth Transfer. I'm along with Dr. Charles Vance. And for those that were not here for the last couple weeks, we've been delving into the concept of why China buying so and hoarding so much gold. As Americans have been not buying gold and silver the last couple months, which I call the Trump trance, other countries are ferociously doing it. Do they know something we don't know? I'm even getting closer to wonder, are we the only ones who believe us? So we're going to go continue into this. I have to say, if you have not seen the program in the last couple weeks, go to wealthtransfernews.org, go into the weekly television and watch the series. It's going to be highly informative, and I think you need to not only watch it for yourself, but send the link and pass it along to family members or people that may not be aware the television program is on. Even post it to your social media if you have to, but get it out. This is a very informative series that will allow individuals to have information your financial service provider is not telling you, let alone the mainstream media. So let's get into this. We want to continue with this pictorial of why China's currency is what it is and why the dollar, King Dollar's days are numbered.
Terry, a lot of people talk about, and I've been in church all of my remembering life, and I've heard people talk about a great end-time wealth transfer. And the fact is, wealth is being transferred all of the time. That's what the name of this program is wealth transfer. You need to be aware of two people on that. There's people that are preparing themselves to receive the wealth to be transferred to them, and there are people that are doing things that's causing the wealth to go away from them. As you learn truth, principles, laws that will cause wealth to come to you and you put them to work in your life, you're going to make a difference in your finances now. In fact, I want to read a couple of scriptures. Terry kind of refers to these just a little bit, kind of paraphrases them. Proverbs chapter 13,
well,
verse
you're the pastor, sir.
22.
So
hey, that's all right. It's okay. I just want people to understand that there is a wealth transfer that's taking place continually. It's not just going to be an end time, but you've got to be prepared for the wealth to come to you. It's called management. God constantly talks about being good managers throughout the scripture. He said, if you can be trusted with a little bit, He'll trust you with a whole lot. If you can't be trusted with a little bit, He said He won't trust you with a lot. So it's your responsibility to use what you have to get yourself in a position so that wealth can come to you. Listen, Proverbs 13:22, a good man leaves an inheritance to his children's children, and this is the part I want you to hear. The wealth of the sinner is laid up for the just. Now, the word sinner just simply means someone who is missing the mark. That can be a Christian that's missing the mark financially. Ecclesiastes chapter 2, verse 26 says, God giveth to a man that is good in his sight wisdom. That's the ability to use knowledge and joy, but to the sinner He gives travail to gather up and to heap up, that he may give to him that is good before God. You know, a lot of times preachers will tell you, send me a certain amount of money and God's going to do this in your life. Well, if you believe the Word of God, and you put your faith in it, and you act in faith, it's very possible that those things will take place. Given it shall be given unto you, good measure, pressed down, shaken together, running over, men shall give into your bosom. I believe that. But more than anything, God requires us to be a good manager of what we have. And Terry, that's what this program is about, yes. Is us teaching people to be good managers with what they have. You've said it before on this program, our currency system is not good management. Our stock market is not good management. Our government is probably the worst example of a good manager or they're just the worst example of a manager that you could probably look at anywhere in the world. How much money do we owe right now?
Well, it's not even something we can calculate. It's literally trillions and tens of trillions and trillions. And
it's been estimated it's over $100 trillion in unfunded liabilities.
Oh, unfunded for sure, let alone all of our bond debt obligations.
So it's ridiculous. And we need to be people that don't play along with that and say, well, everything's cool. We'll just float along with the system.
And unfortunately, that's what we're doing.
A lot of people do that.
We do. And, Charles, the one scripture I know that he refers to a lot is inheritance to your children's children. And I just want to mention this quick story because it's really relevant to what he was referring to as far as the currency in our country's management. I have a wonderful gentleman who is one of the top numists in the country, and he had a guy bring in about $200,000 in $20 bills. Now, apparently he inherited a house from his grandfather, and they were remodeling, and they tore a wall down. His grandfather had taped $200,000 in these 20s to a 2x4, and they found it. So he was like, oh, great, I'm worth $200,000, you know, and maybe a little more because of collectible value. Well, these $20 bills were actually gold certificates. So back in the day, that $20 bill would go to the bank, and then you would get the $20 gold piece. And I know for some of them might say, well, you had to turn in the gold. But let me tell you, 20% of people turned in that gold. Okay, this is one of the gold certificates. He had $200,000 of these in the wall. Now, he's worth about $250,000 with some of the collectible value, so that was great. But here's what we did an analysis of, my friend and I. If that gentleman, instead of putting $200,000 in 20s in his wall, he would have put the gold coins in his wall. Do you know his grandson would have inherited, instead of the $200,000 with some collectible value, that gold today would have been worth $12 million. So instead of inheriting $250,000, he could have had $12 million. Now, that is a transfer of wealth. You see, we've been conditioned that somehow this paper money stock bond world is somehow valid. All through history, folks, only precious metals is not only God's money, but constitutionally, Article 1, Section 8, Congress has the right to coin money with grains of silver and grains of gold. So what a great example of inheritance, and this is the same thing going forward. If we calculate how they calculate the value of gold, now it's been manipulated since the mid-90s. We're not going to get into that. There's some great still pictorials on the Chinese currency we want to get to here right soon. But just understand that the manipulation has been very, very successful, but there's a reckoning day to it. And to just give you an example, if we were to calculate gold right now versus the printed money we have done just really in the last, decade or two, gold right now is valued at $9,000 to $10,000 an ounce, and silver over $1,000. Now, I don't know if it's ever going to go to those levels. Now, it easily could. I'm merely telling you, even fractionally, it's going a lot higher. Just to the high, silver's a 200% return. So for me, it's about protecting the kingdom's assets in a way that you can have peace of mind because there's no third-party attachment to it. So it's a great story on wealth transfer.
It's amazing. Yeah. There's no wonder then that Chinese is stockpiling tons and tons of gold.
That's why we're getting into this, because the Chinese, as Americans in the last couple months, because of the Trump trance, have not been buying gold and silver. They somehow think everything is great, but folks, the data is not saying that. And in this series, we have a couple more weeks we're going to get into and show you raw, real financial data in the United States that you're not hearing from your broker or the financial media. And we're going to show you nothing but the facts. But the Chinese, as we have not been buying it, have been ferociously consuming gold out of the Shanghai Exchange. And wait until you see the chart of the COMEX, which is the American control of physical gold and silver. You'd be stunned at how empty our vaults are. And folks, we don't have reserves in currency like other nations, and we don't have the gold they say we do. I'll bet our gold isn't there, and we haven't audited in 40, 50 years, so we can't really prove that. So before we get into the next pictorial of the Chinese currency and why they're setting up what they're setting up, I'd like to take a break, but before I do, understand that Wealth Transfer is a nonprofit organization now. This is just a phenomenal blessing. The reason being, we could not get onto a lot of Christian television stations and or Christian radio. Wealth Transfer does do a daily radio program. If you go to wealthtransfernews.org, you will be able to catch daily radio as well as our weekly television. What we're trying to do then is, we do have a wonderful sponsor in Cornerstone. They've been helping keep Wealth Transfer alive, but they can only do so much. And what we're trying to do is build partnerships with you, the people in the kingdom. We want to be able to expand into a lot of Christian television networks and expand radio massively to get the news out that this transfer from the wicked to the innocent is in place. And we want people to be educated, and we can only do that by getting in front of them. So those who do become partners with Wealth Transfer, will not only receive a back office access, kind of a membership access, that will show all the charts and data that we do on our television program, which a lot of people have requested because they want to see it more, and on television you can't always see or read it. You also receive a silver coin along with that, so it's going to be a wonderful membership package, and we just want people to know that our mission is to be in front of as many people as possible so we can get the true financial data out there. So let's take a quick break and we'll be right back.
Cornerstone Asset Metals is here to help you secure your financial future by protecting and preserving your assets through silver and gold. The protection and preservation of your investment is our first goal. So we are here to serve you with honesty, transparency, and respect. And for a limited time, Cornerstone will waive your first-year transfer and setup fees when you roll over your current IRA into a gold or silver IRA. That can save you as much as $1,000. Take control of your future. Register on our website at cornerstoneassetmetals.com or give us a call at 888-747-3309. At Cornerstone, securing your future is our goal.
Welcome back. Now we're going to show you a diagram of reserve currencies. Now understand before we go here that a lot of Americans may or may not understand reserve currencies or reserve assets, I guess, because you hear the term. Americans don't have reserve assets. We are so-called the dominant currency in the world. And so in doing so, we don't store up other nations' currencies as a reserve currency. And the other nations do. Now, they use that reserve currency as an asset.
What would you have someone else's currency for?
Well, mainly it started, it's a good question. Mainly it started because back in the 70s when we did the relationship with Saudi Arabia, I mean, obviously, when people ask themselves, why are we possibly such partners with Saudi Arabia? I mean, they literally are an antichrist type nation in the sense of how they treat women and other people. They are the Wahhabists, the communists of the Middle East, and they're horrifically wicked in the way they treat their people. Why would we be partners with them? Well, back in the day, we made a deal with them in the 70s. Nixon did it. And we said, listen, we will protect you militarily, and in turn, you make everyone own a U.S. dollar to buy oil. Everybody needs oil, therefore they had to have U.S. dollars. They would then have to store up the U.S. dollar in order to buy oil. That would be called a reserve currency. Now, of course, in trade, they would store up other currencies as well.
How do they get the U.S. currency? I mean, just we're set.
Well, they would trade their currency for ours.
Okay.
So whatever the value of their currency is, they would get so many dollars in return.
And then what would we do with their currency? What would America do with their currency? Just hold it or use it to buy something else with it?
That's a good question.
Because we don't have any now.
No, and we may have them give up something else. I don't know that answer, but I'm going to find that out because I don't like not knowing something, but I'm going to definitely have that a little later on. But in these reserve currencies, what it is basically is nations profiting. And as they profit and make money, they sock it away in reserve currency. It's a form of an asset, like gold and silver and land. What the Chinese have been doing, not only do they have the world's largest reserve currency, which makes them very powerful, they also own tremendous tangible assets. And, you know, I've seen them in South America, Africa. They're buying up real estate in Canada, all over the United States. These are tangible assets. So they're taking the worthless paper stuff and they're buying real assets. This is partly why the Chinese have been importing so much gold. I don't care what the mainstream says that Chinese only have a couple thousand tons. They're communists. They're liars. I am not going to be surprised that one day soon the Chinese come out and say, oh, by the way, we have more gold than Europe, the IMF, and the United States combined. Our currency is what you need to trust. And folks, they've been setting up currency hubs, strategically getting in place with their partners like Russia and other in the BRICS to get ready to be the king currency. And so what we want to do is I want to get in and show a chart here, part of this pictorial, that shows who holds reserve currencies in the world. Now, here's where the danger has been going recently. Not only has our whole financial system been fake in the last 8 years, they have added $150 trillion in debt to the world by credits and currency printing and everything else. It's staggering how many trillions of dollars in debt and paper money they printed. The whole thing's been fake. Now, with that aside, these nations have had to use their reserve currencies to offset their budgets. It's part of an asset. Now, don't get me wrong. They have gold, they have silver, and they have land, but this paper money is there. And they want to get rid of it, but they want to get rid of it in a measured way. So let me show you this particular graph here. And I know, it might be hard to see, but you will be able to catch that on our website. This graph is a bubble version of reserve currency holders. And what I want you to look at is the big orange one in the middle. Who owns more of other countries' currencies than anybody else? Anyone guess?
I'm going to guess China.
It's right. It is China. China is #1 in reserve currencies, meaning they're extremely wealthy. It doesn't matter how much currency they have printed in the yuan, because they've been printing money to keep their currency value down. So even if the market systems collapse, and the yuan collapses more, they could just allow it to float in value higher, and they still dominate the world. So understand, in this bubble chart you're seeing here, you probably can't see much of it. It's not up on the main screen. But the big orange in the middle there is #1. That's China. They have 3.5 trillion in world currencies. They own us, by the way, folks. Not only do they own our currency, they own our bonds that they're selling off dramatically, but they own us. We're a slave to them, although people may not translate it that way. Then you have Japan at 1.3 trillion, and mind you, a lot of that is American dollars. Then you have Europe, Switzerland, Saudi Arabia, Hong Kong, and Russia. And mind you, Hong Kong, yes, China. So you can see who's stacking it up. Now, Russia...
We're not even on that list.
We're not even on the list.
What's that say?
That's my whole point. Now, the reason we're not on the list at that degree, folks, is because we don't need to do it. We're the dominant currency. Now, we call this the dragon sleeping. So as you're looking at that chart, just keep this in mind. Every other currency is vulnerable to market valuations and countries' perceived strength. But China is attempting to insulate them, and they're taking advantage of the opportunity. You could take that off. What I find amazing is China, now this is my theory only. I don't have data to back this up, and do understand everything we show is data backed. I sometimes have a little theory, and here's mine on this one. I've seen China, I've just seen them, Charles. I've seen them in South America and Africa and all over the world, buying gold mines, copper mines, iron ore mines. They own 90+% of all rare earth minerals. Tangibles. And the rare earth minerals are so vital to our survival. You can't have computers and technologies that we have without rare earth minerals. And guess who owns almost all of them? That's right, China. So they're running around, they're paying 60 million here, 100 million here for these mines and this tangible asset. I think they're using currencies that they hold in reserve. And I think they're lying to people. They're communists. Communists lie. Look at the socialists in our country, how they lie. There's no truth in them because they're antichrist. So they don't have truth. I think they're using their currencies to buy these assets I've been watching them buy. And in the end, when these currencies go through a global reset and collapse, which is coming sooner than not, they're going to have the tangibles to fall back on. There's a reason they have been ferociously this year buying tremendous amounts of gold and silver. And yet you're hearing in your media or by your advisor, nobody's buying gold and silver anymore. Yeah, because they have you, the Americans, completely fooled. You're going in the stock market when hedge funds and commercials are selling. I have the data and the charts on it. So we have to be wiser, not so short-term minded, and stop listening to our fiat advisors. God bless them, even if they're Christian. They're fiat, meaning it's fake currency world educated by the fake currency world. So be very cautious on that advice, because in the end, you've always been better off, especially in the last 10, 15 years, because silver and gold's been the best performing asset you could have held, regardless of where the stock market is right now. What does that paper dollar buy you, you see? And before you know it, silver will be $30, $40, and you're going to wish you bought it when it was 18, because that 100% increase, do you think it's probable the stock market's going up 100%? No. You see? So it's a very interesting deception. Now, in the Chinese gold, we want to get into this next chart, which I find fantastic. This one gets into the yuan trading volume. Now, this is good because the currency yuan has strategically set up trading hubs in the Netherlands, in London. They're getting ready to be a global dominant currency. And you notice the red dragon. Yeah, that's the devil, isn't it? Interesting, huh? Now, they're setting it up. Many people think, oh, it's 20 years away, the dollar dominates. Yeah, but we're talking absent of a crisis, correct? There's a reason they're trying to rush into war with Russia, by the way. The reason. They need somebody to blame for the currency reset and currency, well, economic crisis that's on the horizon. I call it a tsunami, or as we were showing in our series here, the reckoning. So as you're looking at that graph, I want you to see something that's very interesting. China's trading volume has doubled in 3 years, but the U.S. greenback and other top currencies have a huge advantage for now. People think they know what they're worth. The value isn't set by a government apercheck. Now, I'm going to get into this. The U.S. dollar right now dominates, well over 70-80% of the market. Then the euro, the yen, the pound, Australian dollar, and the Chinese is right down in the bottom. But China's trade volume still trails the top currencies by a wide margin. But they're setting the foundation to be the top currency. And I think if you look at the data and the positioning of the Silk Road trades and relationships and the building of the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank and the New Development Bank mirroring our Western system, I think you're going to be really surprised how fast that accelerates.
So common folk talk would just simply say they are getting people prepared to accept their currency rather than someone else's currency.
Absolutely.
So that they can just expand their currency, and if they succeed, they don't even need anybody else's currency.
No, because they will become the dominant trade and finance what they're doing now. China and Russia have successfully forged agreements with each other in their own currencies in central banks, bypassing the dollar, folks, backing it with gold. Now, mind you, that's very interesting.
Now, you said that, I've heard you say this several times, that they own all kinds of our bonds, all kinds of our currency, China does, and they're starting to liquidate it.
They're liquidating at a rapid rate. They've sold off roughly $250 billion of our bonds and treasuries rapidly. I'm talking within months, and they're doing it quicker. Now, they play both sides of the fence, folks, as they hold on to still maybe $1 trillion in our bonds. Don't be deceived. They've been using their paper reserves to buy hard tangible assets. They know the amount of gold and silver they own. When the dollar collapses in valuation, they're going to escalate in theirs.
Now, our currency system in America has to stay in a circuit. It has to move.
Well, it has to dominate.
Well, dominate, but it also, if everybody just takes this and puts it in a bank somewhere or puts it in a hole, the currency system collapses.
Absolutely.
Because it's created to move.
And
it has to be traded constantly.
And here's the problem. We've printed so many trillions that it's not moving like they think. And not only that, these countries are bypassing our dollar. Now, there was a day when just about every country, before they did a trade deal, would first buy an American dollar, then do the trade deal with the other country. They're not doing that anymore. There's countries now like Japan and China directly using their own currencies, bypassing the dollar. And folks, that is enormous if you understood the impact. My concern is we wake up when it's too late. And one thing I want to show you back on that chart, one thing I want you to understand. For now, the yuan remains basically a sleeping dragon. And we know that's Satan, which is kind of funny. But if China ever really joins the global market in a meaningful way, watch the currency wake up and breathe fire. Here's what I'm telling you. If ever, no, folks, they're doing it. It's happening and happening right now. They've set up the currency hubs. They're arranging relationships with all of their partners like Russia and others with the central banks. They're bypassing the dollar in any of the trade and conversions. They own the title of the world's largest trading market, and they own the title of the largest economy. They are blowing us away. There is a reason America neocons are trying to go to war. They need a distraction away from what is coming. And so there's a big important point. China is continuing and Russia is continuing to buy gold and silver. Why Americans are not, they don't understand the history and they're listening to the wrong person, aka financial advisor.
If our currency had just been created to stay in America, we could control what's going on with it. But
Yes.
where it's become a world currency, we don't have the ability to control what's going on in other countries with our currency.
Well, and you know, that's a very good point because we did a lot in a series that really brought people to understand. We had 300 billion in printed currency before, when this all started in the 70s. Today, it's literally trillions. Trillions and trillions. Now,
the Federal Reserve won't even tell you how
they
much.
won't even tell you. Now, they're not going to say the physical currency itself is maybe 1.3 trillion, but it's all in digits in the cosmos. It is so fake, folks, that if the digits in the cosmos system melts down, this game's over. You think you have money in the bank? Every bank in America, just about, is insolvent. Because Charles, very successfully over the past has alluded to fractional banking, which means they bring in 1,000, they loan out 2,600 or 26,000.
Sometimes 40,000,
Yes.
depending on the bank.
That fractional banking means everybody's insolvent. They don't have your money. Go to the bank right now and try to withdraw $5,000. Number one, you get reported because somehow you're a criminal when the bank themselves is really the criminal. They don't have your money. And they're trying to make you think it's not important. They want you to live off the credit card. Folks, this is a setup. And so what we're going to do is we're going to get to next week detailing now the American side of why China is doing this and how and why they're confident about it. Wait until you see this American data. You're going to start to understand the same. So God bless you. And please visit our sponsor, Cornerstone. They'll look after you.
Be a good manager. Don't wait until it's too late to prepare. Join us next week, same place, same time, right here for more of the Wealth Transfer.
Cornerstone Asset Metals is here to help you secure your financial future by protecting and preserving your assets through silver and gold. The protection and preservation of your investment is our first goal. So we are here to serve you with honesty, transparency, and respect. And for a limited time, Cornerstone will waive your first-year transfer and setup fees when you roll over your current IRA into a gold or silver IRA. That can save you as much as $1,000. Take control of your future. Register on our website at cornerstoneassetmetals.com or give us a call at 888-747-3309. At Cornerstone, securing your future is our goal.